there was one show in particular where now thankfully I wasn't the front man on this show. It was another show that I played that I was just kind of a side man on, and I was so sick that I had to sit in a chair on stage. I sat on a chair on stage with a bucket next to me in case I had to throw up.
So you how's your new gig? What the
New job?
yeah.
Yeah, it's going well so far. Yeah, drinking from a fire hose for sure. Lots to learn, but it's good.
How many hours are you putting in? 40 or more than that or what?
Yeah, it's full time. So during this training period, or at least kind of for the month of February, I've been putting in, just over 40. But um, the the schedule is going to be kind of stabilizing a little bit next month to kind of what it's going to be like normally. So it'll be um, I'll end up with a day off during the week, kind of like you've got. So because with this kind of job, Saturdays are a big retail day.
For
So
sure.
so
Okay.
they're like, hey, um, want you to work Saturday, but then you can have a day off during the week to make that work, and then um, but they close at 3 o'clock on Saturdays, and so I can still do some gigs and stuff on in the evenings and things like that too. So
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. Well,
so
speaking of gigs, are you holding off on that right now because of the training and just not sure what you're getting into as far as the this job, or are you got some stuff going right now?
Well, I'm still trying to keep the schedule full for sure. So
Okay.
I've still got it. It's 1 to 2 gigs a weekend. So
Oh wow.
um yeah. So like this upcoming weekend, I've got a gig on Saturday. Last week I had a gig on Friday night. Next month there's a Friday and Saturday night. That's actually kind of the goal is to be fairly busy like that. But
Okay. And are
um,
you is this with a band or is this you yourself right now?
yeah, it's kind of a combination. So a lot of it's solo acoustic and things.
Yeah.
Um, but there's a band that I used to play with like probably 5 6 years ago as their guitar player. I've actually joined them again as their bass player.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so just kind of a new challenge and things just to grow in my musicianship. It's a um, so where do I want to say it's making me a better guitar player because you have to think about more than just the guitar of what's going on in the band, right? So you're kind of thinking about I'm trying to think a lot more rhythmically, like, hey, what are the drums doing, and then just kind of the whole ensemble of what's happening, and then it's kind of forcing me to think about the whole picture instead of just I'm just jamming on this for guitar wise, right? Which
Sure.
that's fun too, but um, yeah. So and then the full band right now, I'm at least for my full band, we've got a couple more shows that I have booked right now, but um, kind of taking a step back from that for at the moment.
Okay. Okay.
So
Well, yeah, I mean, part of what I wanted to ask you is how you got into music, like I listened to rock and stuff as a kid and always, would run around the house and play air guitar and whatever, but
yeah,
I never got into it like that until I tried to pick it up a little bit in college.
sure.
And then of course I met you because you were my teacher for more than a year.
Sure.
But so how did is music a big thing in your family?
Yeah, for sure. So, um, really, what kind of got me into music and just what made me fall in love with it was, um, I mean, I think a lot of people have a similar experience. Kind of, at least for me, it was my both of my parents would always be playing music, no matter you know my mom would be playing music in the kitchen as she's working in there or something. My dad would be out in the garage working on a motorcycle or something and working on his truck or something, and he'd have his stereo going on. He'd usually have either Van Halen or Brad Paisley. It was like that I just the two that I remembered anyway, and both of those were big guitar, big guitar heroes. Very different styles, but I just remember even being like a 10-year-old and just wow, that's cool. Just hearing both of those players play and just Brad Paisley especially, it was like what in the world is he doing? That's insane. um, and so I didn't actually start playing for a few years after. I mean, I took some lessons when I was 9, but didn't really it didn't really click until I was 15. I started really taking it more seriously. So, but yeah, I mean, as far as what got me into it, yeah, it was just music was always a big part of growing up. Just my parents playing stuff around, and then I just started discovering what I liked, and I would started listening to the radio. I remember coming home from church and just they had I would turn the radio on, and I would just turn the radio on in my room and listen to like the top 20 countdown of the week of what was popular that week on like even like Christian radio or something like that. I was just like, which one's going to be number one this week, things like that, oh yeah, okay, that one was number 2 for 3 weeks in a row, and now I got to number 1. It was just in middle school, like just geeking out over that
Absolutely.
kind of stuff.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Back when you relied on the radio a lot, and
yeah,
they played, and you listen you listened to it. You didn't have a whole lot of
yeah,
choices sometimes, huh?
yeah, it was fun though
Um,
for sure.
were your parents, did they play instruments at all?
Play. Um, a little bit. I know my mom played like some flute and things like that, but um, my dad dabbled in a lot of instruments, but never stuck with it. Um, but he always had a lot of natural talent. He just um, didn't have a lot of support from his folks growing up, and so uh, didn't really end up sticking with it. So he um, always encouraged me and to stick with it. Um,
What was it, guitar for him too that he tried to play?
Yeah, guitar mainly. I know he's played. He dabbled in some other instruments too. I think he has a violin, accordion too, like a couple other
Oh,
instruments like that too. But yeah, he's still got those instruments. I don't know where they are, but
okay. Okay, so you're 15, you finally take the plunge and you start taking lessons then?
well, so what it was I had just kind of think at 13 I bought a guitar for like $300 or something. I bought a guitar because I'm like, oh, now I want to do it, right? And then it sat on the wall for 2 years. I bought
Okay.
it and I didn't actually do anything with it.
I
And
know
then yeah,
that.
I
Sure.
bought it and did nothing with it. And then when I was 15, yeah, like January of that year, like 2013, I think is when it was.
Okay.
That's when I just started playing and I just didn't stop basically. So
Okay. And
yeah, I
no, go ahead.
and so and you asked about lessons. So for the first like 8 months or so, I was self-taught. And then um, after I had started playing and started really loving it, then my siblings wanted to start playing instruments. And so then my sister started taking guitar lessons, and my brother started taking drum lessons, um, actually at Pure Rock. So, um, and so they started at Pure Rock, and then I started there soon after that too. So,
Okay. So you were
yeah,
self-taught. Now, you're younger than me. So what are we talking what year are we talking when you started playing?
when I started playing,
Yeah.
yeah. So this was I think 2013.
Okay. So how,
So
like, was it on the internet or did you just buy books or how did you?
yeah, I mean, I had had some chord books and things like that, but a lot of it was YouTube and stuff for sure. There was still a lot of I think what it was for me was at that right around that time I was also really getting heavily into country music, and there I don't know how like bands like Florida Georgia Line were just starting to get big, and Jason Aldean, all these kinds, Randy Houser. There's a bunch of different stuff on the radio that were really guitar heavy at the time. A lot of guitar solos, like we were working on that My Kind of Party solo, right? For what, like the songs kind of in that vein where there was just so much guitar going on that um, there was a bunch of tutorials and things like that, and so I just started diving in and I just tried to learn all that stuff. And um, for me, that was what it was it was really exciting to play stuff that wasn't. Um, I thought that I was going to have to start playing Mary Had a Little Lamb or something and like do that, but then it got really fun when I realized that no, I can actually play stuff that I want to play, and like these simple chords here that I'm learning right now. Oh my gosh, I can use those chords to play this song that I love on the radio right now, or the just like it's like even though I'm not actually playing it, I'm not playing it well. I'm not actually playing the exact solo that's going on. It's just, but I'm jamming the chords, and this is fun because I'm playing the song, right?
Sure. Yeah, that makes
And,
sense.
s-
That makes a lot
and
of
so
sense. Yeah.
it that whole thing just kind of just kept snowballing into learning more and more and more, and then having I don't know. Did you ever meet Drew Medine
No, I'm
at Pure Rock?
I've seen him on the website. I don't know that I've ever even seen him in person, but
Yeah, so he was my first teacher
oh,
there
okay.
at Pure Rock. He actually, um, my sister was Drew's first student there at Pure Rock.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah, yeah. So, um, but yeah, man, that's kind of how it started for me anyway. Was just, man, this is fun. I don't have to, I obviously there's things that you got to learn that are, you know, not as exciting or something, but it's like at that time it was like, okay, what's going on here? I wasn't even thinking about all the theory and all that kind of stuff that came later, but you know um it was fun to just kind of plug and play. And there was a couple specific YouTube channels that I watched quite a bit of, and just that they had some really really well done um uh tutorials on certain songs that I loved, and so just kind of
Okay. Yeah, I was
dove
wondering
into that.
how good that stuff was back even then, 2013 or whatever. So YouTube had been out for maybe 5 or so years, I think, and
Yeah,
like guitar. I'm trying to think of ones that I think have been around forever that I've kind of messed with. Guitar 365 or something like that.
yeah, there's I mean, just like anything, especially with social media and all that stuff. I mean, it's just the information has just the overload is just insane of what is out there, right?
Yeah, like when I picked up the guitar in college and tried to start, and it was just all self-taught. But back then, it was like I was trying to print off tabs off the internet that were clearly not correct. Like you'd play it, and I wasn't able to play it anyway. But when I would play a little bit, I'm like, this doesn't sound right. It doesn't look right. Nothing. And so I was just wondering what YouTube was like back then. If you had but I guess decent people, videos were probably a lot better way to go.
Yeah, and it was. I always learn better by just myself. I learn better by seeing and kind of just like hands-on do and like trying to like hear it and stuff. And so, um, it was always more beneficial for me to watch a video on how something was done instead of just like reading the tabs. And the tabs are helpful too. I still used those sometimes, and I still do if I need to. That's always my last that's always my last resort though. I try to try as best I can to not use it if I can, just because I'm trying to develop the ear first. But
Well, yeah,
um,
especially now your ear is so much better that you can kind of pick it out, and if you see somebody on the video, you kind of understand where they're playing and whatever. So,
yeah, but I mean, so basically at the time, and especially with the kind of music that I was into like I was trying to play the popular country music that was on the radio right then, right? That was popular right then. So as far as like those songs and guitar tutorials, like that search, there wasn't a whole lot of saturation on that. So there was at least, again, you know, trying to remember back then how I exactly did it, but I don't think there was a ton of competition for information on it, and so there was a couple channels that one in particular that I remember that I think he's still doing stuff. His name's Brett Papa, or that's his YouTube channel, Brett Papa. Um, at the time, I think it was like Papa Stash Country or something like that, and then he had Papa Stash Pop or something. Now he's melded it into one channel, but if I'm correct on that, but um, just he had a whole bunch of different country songs on there, and it was just um, explained things in a really interesting way. And I don't want to discredit what Drew was able to teach me too. He taught me a lot as well. So, um, but just kind of my whole guitar journey has been a combination of some in some in-person lessons, a lot of self-taught, a lot of go back and forth.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I mean, I understand that. I've done lessons now for however long, and of course it it's what I put into it is what I get out of it. But at the same time, you only see the person once a week, whereas
sure,
You got YouTube 24 hours a day. So anytime you got a chance to sit down and pick away, I can see how
yeah,
yeah you get it benefit from both. So
yeah,
did you end up playing in a band with your siblings?
yeah. So through Pure Rock, I'm sure you've heard of like the group classes and stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
That's really how I started kind of getting into it more and more.
Okay.
I mean, by this point, I had already started playing at on my church worship team. At the church I grew up,
Yeah.
stuff like that. So I mean, I was starting to kind of learn a little bit there, and then but those group classes at Pure Rock were really a big instrument for me, or a big, um, really big help. So um,
Well,
yeah, so me,
that's when you
yeah,
put it together, right? Like you,
yeah,
it's fun to play in your room by yourself, but then to get out with other people and try and like be in time and all that kind of stuff, that's where you really learn.
yeah. So that basically what happened was my sister and I, and then we had a couple of friends at the time that were also in the group class, and um, the four of us had started a band, and so
Okay.
basically from the group class we kind of started a band, and we called ourselves Mixed Invasion.
Cool.
So
Okay.
and so that was in 2014, I think is when um, we kind of yeah, I think we had our first show in like May of that year. Yeah, it was like a local venue in Byron that's no longer around, but it was just this. There's a few other kind of local bands and stuff that would, and we'd kind of play together, and it was just um, a fun way to just kind of get some experience performing.
That's pretty impressive that
So
within that time period you guys were put together enough that you were willing, able to play in front of a like at a venue of some kind. So,
it was a lot of fun. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I remember my dad took a video of the whole thing. It's still on his YouTube channel. Yeah, it's out there. But
cool. That's awesome.
um that yeah. um
Yeah. So, one of the other things that stuck out when I was talking to you, and I mentioned this in an email to you, was that you grew up and you were homeschooled,
yeah,
and it's just an interesting. Like I don't know, like I know of people, um, I never knew anybody really when I was growing up
sure.
that was doing that, and I actually have a coworker that I just learned. I think maybe COVID really turned him off to what the public system had to offer, or
Yep.
just that gave him a bad taste, and so he started. I think it's his wife and a group are homeschooling some kids together there. So it's just a foreign. It's totally foreign to me. So
Yeah.
were you homeschooled all the way through high school?
Yep. All the way through. There was a during for junior and senior year in Minnesota. You can take PSEO classes. Um, so post secondary classes. It's
Oh yeah.
basically like through the community college. So at RCTC, you can take. basically college level or college courses, but you're in high school, so you don't have to pay for them,
Sure. Okay.
which is, of course, incredible. So,
Yeah.
so a lot of my schooling those last 2 years was
Was
through there,
actually
but
at the.
but I was still like homeschooled, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So
Yeah. I mean, was
yeah,
it
so I
just
was
was it just your siblings, or was it other families that kind of had gotten together to do this, or how did?
for as far as just like homeschooling in general. Yeah, yeah. So basically, um, but yeah. So to answer your first question, so yeah, it was all the way through. I never went to a traditional public school or anything. It was all yeah, it was all at home. The but there are these things that we got involved in them called co-ops, and what they are is yeah. So there's quite a community of homeschoolers in Rochester. So so what we would do is um, you'd have a bunch of you'd have a we were part of this like it was like Rochester Area Association of Christian Home Educators, I think is what it was.
Oh, okay.
This is still around, I'm pretty sure, but um, basically you'd have um, a bunch of families that would pick a day during the week, like a Tuesday morning or something, and we'd all have like go to a church or something and like their classrooms or something, and then we would um, different moms or dads or who are really skilled in a certain subject would basically teach the kids that subject. So so f- like we'd go there and we'd have maybe three classes that morning. And so the first hour was with maybe my mom and she was teaching a government class. And then the next hour I'd go to the next room and I'd be with a bunch of other kids and we'd be learning we'd be learning from Laura's mom over there, and we're learning English from her, and then we're learning a math subject from this other person, right?
Uh huh.
And it's all just a parent of one of the kids or something like that. So
Okay. So, like, was it laid out months ahead of time? Was there like like a full schedule laid out, or was it like kind of week to week? This is what's going on.
it was kind of a structured kind of class setup, that you'd
Yeah.
have and so then basically you wouldn't get your final grade from that particular teacher. You'd have like a suggested grade to give to that parent, and then so each kid's parents would give them the final grade, right? But you'd kind of have a and really all this co-op was just this was all just a supplement to what you're already doing at home, right? So it's um and really one of the biggest things about it was that in a traditional public school environment you're in a you're in the classroom for 7 8 hours a day,
Yeah.
right? You're there. I mean, you're not sitting at in one spot. I mean, you're obviously moving to different classes and stuff, but with homeschooling, you're basically trimming a lot of the fat down, right?
Yeah.
So you're not taking lunch and recess breaks and stuff like that, so you can get all your stuff done, especially in such a small classroom setting, right? With you have a parent or maybe everybody does it differently. There's sometimes different curriculums that there's online curriculums that sometimes people will sign up through or something, but um so your school day might only last for you know 2 to 4 hours,
Sure.
and
Yeah,
then
that
you're
makes sense.
done the rest of the day, and now you're helping mom out with whatever needs to happen around the house. You're cleaning up stuff, or you're go out play in the yard or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Interesting. So, did you get stuff like were there materials sent to your house from wherever?
no, my mom just kind of made up. It was pretty much kind of her own kind of system. So she had kind of a this year we're gonna focus on you know learning this type of math, and then learning this type of math, and then learning this type of you know English, and we're gonna um, now you're gonna learn this subject, and now you're gonna learn that subject, and we're
Okay.
gonna
So she
you
just
know
put it together the
yeah.
way that she structured it, the way that she thought was appropriate, and then
Yep, yep, and it's totally flexible too. So it's like if we had something going on in a particular week, it's like no one's breathing down the neck to like you have to get this done right today. It's like we could, maybe do a little bit more on Monday so we could do less on Tuesday because we had something going on, or, it's a lot more flexible. So, so, and then we still had some standardized testings that we had to get done too, through the state and everything too. So it was still, like all legit and everything, but, you know, it was just basically learn the stuff, however you learn it,
Yeah.
and we're not basically just not trusting the government to do it.
Yeah, no, I
Um,
mean I can see huge benefits, like you said, trimming the fat as far as the time,
yeah,
just getting the core, like these are the core areas that we're going to work on and get that done, especially if it's one on one or one on two or whatever. I
yeah,
can
and
see.
and every family does it different. So like my experience could be, can definitely vary for to the next homeschooler's, experience too. Like I know there's certain online curriculums that are already kind of prepackaged and ready to go. I don't know how much of I don't know how much of those resources were as easily readily available as they are now, because especially post COVID, especially as the population of homeschoolers has grown so much. I think there's been an increase of demand of resources like that. So you know, I don't. I can't speak for my parents on what they actually on kind of what was available back then, but or at least 20 years ago when they first started doing all this stuff. So,
Sure, sure.
but
Yeah, so then um, I guess my other question with that, along the lines of that, was
yeah,
from what you know of like the public school, do you feel like there were gaps in anything, I don't experiences, like did you do sports? I know that sports is open. You can enroll in sports.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so yeah, can you speak to that?
yeah, for sure. So, the best way I can think to describe it is that there's kind of like this Rochester Area Association of Christian Home Educators that they had. It wasn't just the co-op thing that they did. They also had their own sports leagues, and they also had their own different. So like, I did track and field through the home with the homeschool team, right? So it was just it was me and a bunch of other homeschoolers that were in the same age range, and we would be on a track and field team, and we'd compete against other like private schools around southeastern Minnesota or whatever, right? Um, so there were all that kind of stuff. There were volleyball, basketball. I not saying I did all these, but this is just all the stuff that's available, right? Volleyball, basketball. At the time they did track and field. I don't know if they still do or not, but um, there was choirs and things like that. There were um, that's just a few that I can name off the top of my head. But then yeah, like you said, like open different stuff like RYBA, right? The Rochester baseball thing, right? Like I did that for a few years, right? And that was obviously not associated with the homeschooling community, but it was just like I still got a ton of community, right? Like I still was um around people all the time, but it was just not in a traditional classroom setting, right? I felt like I had the opportunity to build more meaningful relationships because you're um trying to think of the best way to describe it. Um, your friend group is your friends and peers are not kind of just pre-assigned to you based on your age, if that makes sense.
Oh, okay, sure.
Like in a classroom, like in a traditional, just like classroom setting,
Yeah.
you're like my friends were people that I was in Boy Scouts with, or um, baseball with, or Taekwondo. I did that too, right? Like there was just different things that I already shared things in common with these people with these individuals, and so it was easier to build more. And then I was again heavily involved in church and stuff too. So, Sunday school, and there was different youth groups and things like that. So it was just the friends I made were um, um, it was an easier way to kind of have more in common right off the bat because It's not just we're all going to school because we all happen to be third grade at the same time. I don't know if that makes sense, but
Yeah.
that's that's all I meant to say on that. So,
Cool.
but
Cool. And then, so did you go to school, or did you meet your wife in one of these activities?
yeah, she was homeschooled as well, actually. So,
Okay.
yeah, so she was um, trying to think of trying to think of where we first met. It's kind of a loaded question. As far as that goes.
Well, that's okay.
I'm
I,
trying to
I
I'm
won't
trying to
tell
think
her
of
that
the
you don't remember.
no, it's because there's a lot of technicalities. We probably met first in this in the co-ops, right?
Yeah.
Like the homeschool co-op, right? But we were but at RCTC we were in an English class together, right? So that's where we first started getting to know each other a little bit more,
Okay. Sure.
right? But even way back before that, Carrie and my sister were actually in a dance class together when they were like 4,
Oh, okay.
right? Like
Yeah.
just little things like that. So it's like I don't know how technically I'm not sure how this all works here, but
Okay. So
um,
you've known her, or known about her, basically your whole life.
in a way, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we were both homeschooled at the same time. We were both homeschooled at the same time. We both were in the same grade, things like that. So
Okay. Do you know why did your parents have, I mean, it was just accepted that you were doing this, but at some point did you ever say, like, why did you choose to homeschool us instead of, did you ever have that conversation?
um, they explained definitely why. I mean, they definitely told us why we were being homeschooled, but I wasn't. There was never a point where I wanted to. There wasn't really a point where I was like, I wish I wasn't homeschooled or something.
Sure, sure.
Because I honestly enjoyed it, and I'm really grateful I was. Um, it's um, and really the reasons that they gave are probably the same reasons what you would maybe assume is that hey, it's don't really want to trust the government to you know to handle education like this.
Sure.
Because even at the time they were push. I mean, not to get political, but they were even pushing some not wonderful stuff back then.
Okay.
And obviously it's gotten worse since then too. So
Sure.
so and then too, even just things like we're just not even gonna deal with um, the bullying or anything like that. Like we were, you know, I think here's a stereotype that maybe you would think of is the word sheltered, right? You would think of
Oh, sure.
homeschoolers being sheltered, like you know, they're going to get out in the real world and they're going to be incredibly overwhelmed with the realities of the realities of the world, right? And that's definitely that definitely can be the case. I've seen examples of that, but it can also work in the completely opposite way, and it's where the kids are out with their parents doing stuff because they're not in a classroom all day, and so they're in the real world more just like with their parents, right? And so they see more. They're you know and so they're not as I guess sheltered and
Yeah. No, I can totally, I mean, now
uh,
that you mention that, yeah, I guess I can totally see people thinking that you're, like, literally stuck at home all day, and therefore you don't see people, you don't get any sort of socialization at all. I can totally see that as a stereotype. Yeah. But yeah, I understand what you're saying. Whereas, again, you've trimmed the fat on all the stuff that
yeah,
your parents, it sounds like maybe your mom, or whatever, maybe your mom took the lead on this, but so what your mom wanted as far
yeah,
as education, and trim the fat, and then now we do
yeah,
this, and then we have time to do all this other stuff too. So
yeah. And I think too, and what's interesting too is that I mean, of course, there's all kinds of data out there that homeschooled kids actually perform better, academically in a lot of ways. As a generalization.
I can
Um,
I can see that too. The
but it
less distractions, more focus on each topic. Yeah.
I think too, it's in what I've, again, this is just what I've noticed as an adult now, seeing, like even just like teaching younger people, right? Even just teaching guitar, right? I could tell before they even said something. A lot of times I could tell the kids that were homeschooled and the kids that weren't.
Really? That's
Yeah.
awesome. There's like a trait, maybe something you can't even put your finger on, but there's like some sort of trait of a person that you're like, oh, you must have been homeschooled because you have whatever.
And I think what it and I don't want this to sound negative in I don't want this to sound negative or
No,
anything. It's more so the the ones that were homeschooled were, I could just tell they were more talkative, they were more respectful, they were more engaging, they were more engaged through the process, they were more um, just they just seemed more mature
interesting.
at a younger age
Yeah,
than, again, not at all talking down on anybody that was not that way, but it
yeah,
was just that's just what I've noticed. And then they would say they're homeschooled, and I'm like, kind of knew it.
that's
You know what
awesome.
I mean?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
and there's probably and I don't know all the reasons for why that might be. My guess is just, again, they're probably, you know um, they're you know they have a lot more hands-on experience with adults and authority and things like that, because they're not in the classroom as much. I mean, obviously they have teachers and things like that in the classroom, but you know um, their parents are right there, like, you know kind of, hey, you don't talk to that person that way, like there's a little bit. I
Yeah,
don't know,
sure, sure.
that's just my guess. I mean, you know
Well, yeah.
like
As opposed to one teacher to 30 students or more, even.
yeah, just, like, I remember there were several instances of, like, you know when I was in more environments where there were um when I was with other just kids my age that were, you know um um where it was a mix of homeschoolers and public schoolers, whatever it was. um I would hear maybe sometimes how some kids would talk to adults, and I would just be sitting in the back of my head. I'm like, if I said that to my dad, I'd get my ass whooped. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's not, because, um, and again, I know I don't mean that to sound like a generalization or anything like that, but that's,
It's yeah. I mean that's why I'm doing this. It's your own perspective. It's your own. Yeah. I mean, it's what you again what you lived. That's really cool. And it makes sense that there's almost an intangible, like you guys. Again, I mean, there's all sorts of things like that. I'm not often do people, let's say in my profession, not often do I go up to some stranger and say, "Are you in law enforcement?" But sometimes I'm like, that guy's acting like the way he holds himself, the where he sits in a restaurant, all these things that we have kind of learned over and military guys say it all the time, right? Like that they know. Specifically, of course, the SEALs are like, I can pick a SEAL out of the room, as soon as I walk in there. So there's all these intangibles of
yeah.
people who go through similar things. So that makes total sense. Yeah.
It's kind of that takes one to know one kind of thing, right? Like, you definitely can, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And so it was your brother, you have one brother and one sister?
Yep, yep.
Okay. Um, and then you graduated and you got some post-secondary credits. And then did you get a associate's degree or did you go straight to music school?
Well, what I should have done was taken the post secondary more seriously and actually got because there was some people that there were some people that I knew that graduated high school with an associate's degree
Oh
because they
wow.
took
Yeah.
PSEO that seriously, and so
Yeah.
they graduated high school with an associate's degree for free.
Yeah.
That's what I should have done, but I, when you're 17, you're like, who cares? Whatever. I'll get some classes and whatever.
I'm
But
with you. I mean, I didn't even get
yeah,
any credits. I was
it,
so poor of a student that they didn't even offer me post secondary. And just like,
it,
just make it through high school.
um, so, um, well, and I think part of it, I hated school too. So I just, I didn't enjoy, I just didn't enjoy no matter who was teaching me, I just didn't really enjoy much of it. After high school, um, I took kind of that fall after graduation and just kind of kept working at Hy-Vee. I was working at Hy-Vee at the time, stocking shelves and things like that, and cashiering and stuff. But and then I went to welding school actually at
Oh,
RCTC
oh, okay.
um, at in during that winter spring of 2017 there. So um,
Did you get your degree or did you quit?
yep. Yep, no, I did. So it was a certificate. So it was just like it was like a 1 semester long certificate basically. So
Why?
um,
So instead of going to this power sport, why didn't you choose to try and do something in welding? Or do you not actually enjoy it that much anymore?
well, it's not that I don't enjoy it. I actually do enjoy it quite a bit. It was just, honestly, there was just, frankly, there was more money in sales actually.
Oh, well, that's a good reason.
So,
Okay.
and it was just one of those things too that, welding is, not that I don't enjoy it, I do, but it is a little bit trying to think about big picture with like doing music as well. Like, it's a little bit more dangerous. Like, there's a little bit more risk to like damaging your hands pretty
Sure.
significantly, or you
Okay.
know like if I'm singing, there's a lot of fumes that are coming into your helmet. There's like, as you're burning 6,000 degrees, worth of metal right in front of you, and there's fumes and things that you shouldn't be breathing in, and you know just things like that I was thinking of the longevity of all that. So
Oh, that makes sense.
um
Yeah. Okay. I didn't
but
even think of that. I mean, the injury, but I also thought maybe if you got into a welding job that they would keep saying like, "Oh, we got another job," and all of a sudden you're working overtime and you're then there's no time for what you really want to do. So
that's was the main kind of that was one of the main things I kept running into. Was a lot of the jobs that I saw were um, they required a certain amount of overtime because
mm,
they're just so busy, right? Which again, if that was the only thing I was doing was just welding, it'd be like, great, let's throw it at
true.
me, let's go, let's make
Yeah.
some more money, right? But
Yeah, for
it
sure.
was trying to do that, trying to during the week clock in at 5, 6 in the morning, and then on Fridays and Saturdays, then go try to play a gig that goes until 1 in the morning, get home at 3, maybe 4. That's like, how do I get on any sort of rhythm there? So
True. Yeah.
right, so it's a completely opposite schedule once a week. You're just it's um. So I mean, uh, so I did the welding for I did it for a little over 2 years, and then I went to college. So I basically took like 3 gap years, if you want to think of it that way. So um, and then yeah, I'm still trying to figure out I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do when I grow up. All right, is
I
basically what it is.
I understand. I
That's
understand.
basically what it still is. But um, yeah, so music school for 2 years, and then I dropped out because I didn't want to keep spending the money. It was really expensive. Um,
Where
and
was it?
it was in Minneapolis at North Central University.
Oh, okay.
It's a private Christian college in downtown Minneapolis. So
Okay.
so
And you did 2 years. How many more years would you need to do to finish?
it would have been probably more like a year and a half left.
Okay.
So not saying I won't ever go back and get a bachelor's, but you know, really what it was, but at the time was that um, Carrie and I had been dating that last 6 months of my school there. So I had started uh, we started dating in December of 2020, and then um, uh, I went that spring semester of 21, and then I was fully intending to go back to school that fall, but Carrie and I just kept, or we just kept connecting further and further, and it became clear that she was the right person, and so I decided instead of doing long distance for another year and a half, let's get married and
Okay.
let's just go ahead and start this thing. Let's not, because I don't see the point in you know waiting and then racking up double the student loan debt, and then now we have a harder time getting started at that point. And and with music school, you don't really, it's not like there's any sort of guarantee of a music job when you get done with music school. I had met a lot of people, I had made a lot of connections, and so it was just kind of made the decision that this. And also after COVID too, it had just started going downhill, and it was like the music department started kind of quote
Oh,
unquote collapsing a little bit. It
the
was kind of
quality of the school was
That's
okay.
what it was. It was like they raised tuition on us
Oh,
fall of 2020, but the quality went down because we had to wear masks. We had to do we had to do a lot of our lessons online, and it was like, well, if I'm doing a guitar lesson on Zoom, it's like, okay, I could pay any teacher in the world
true.
to do a Zoom lesson. It's
Yeah,
like, you're kind of paying for the in person, one-on-one thing, right? So it's um, just really didn't see the value in the price tag that they were charging for it. So,
I see. Okay,
um, but
cool. So you were
still
living.
learned a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, you were living up there though.
Yeah.
You were
Yep.
living up there for
Yep.
okay, and then so you quit and you and Carrie get married soon after.
So we dated for 7 months, and then I proposed in July of 21, and then we got married January 7th of 22.
Cool. Okay.
5 months engagement. So yeah.
Whirl, pretty whirlwind. You got her done. Good.
Yeah.
Um,
Hey, I knew I had the right one. I didn't want to wait anymore.
that's
So
right.
she
Don't let her
she's
go.
sitting over here on the other side of the room right now. So oh, she's got her headphones on. Never mind.
Oh, okay.
But
Um, yeah. So like, I guess what you know now about music school
yeah,
versus what the other ways that you've learned. What I guess what's the difference besides the intensity? I guess every day, 5 days a week, I think, or whatever, going to school. What's the difference? Do you think you can get as far without it? Um, if somebody's thinking about going to music school, what I guess what would be the things that you would tell them to think about before they made that decision?
yeah. I mean, I think just basically just going with a full understanding of what you're actually doing. Like, don't expect to go there and think that, kind of like I said earlier, don't go there expecting that you're gonna go through 4 years of school and then get out, and then now all of a sudden you're going to have a $1 million a year salary as a professional musician.
Sure,
That's what you're paying for, is the expertise from your professors who have been in the industry for a long time, and who hopefully know what they're talking about and are able to kind of it's a lot about making connections.
hmm,
um, and really that's more what you're paying for than anything, is you're paying to make those really high quality connections with other musicians that are in the same boat as you, and you can help each other in those ways. So and it's not really, um I mean, absolutely it'll still give you some credentials to be able to put on a resume, of course. Like, he's got a degree in music, he probably knows what he's doing, right? That's
yeah,
obviously that's not worth, I mean, that's still worth something, but it's um um the skills that you really want to be working on, especially as a musician, is not even just the performing aspect of it or just the technical stuff. Like you want to really work on um, being reliable, being on time, knowing your stuff, being prepared with the music that you're supposed to learn, um, being a good hang, being able to just kind of get along with anybody, and being able to just know your place, know where you know, if you're working for another artist, knowing when to not, knowing when to speak up, when to shut up, when to, those kinds of things. Those are skills that um, are almost, they're just as if not more important than the technical playing stuff, because you're not gonna. I would much rather, even as somebody who's hired musicians to play in my band, like I would much, much, much rather hire somebody who's not even as good of a player, but they're easy to work with. They show up on time. They're they're still proficient in what they're doing. They're still a good player, but um, I want to be around them and they're easy to work with. Right? That's
Sure.
I would much rather hire that guy any day over the guy that's, yeah, he can play circles around anybody, but he's kind of a dick. You know what
But
I
is
mean? Like,
yeah, yeah, sure.
no one wants to work with him because he thinks he's here and he thinks he's here and everybody else is here. That's not fun for anybody. So,
Sure. Sure.
but
That makes sense. What yeah, I guess like what right now it sounds like you maybe are still in fact up in the air, but what right now if we could project in 10 years from now, like what would you be doing?
10 years from now, I
Would it be music? Would you be in a band? Would you be a performer full time? Or
I would say so. Yeah,
that's what you
I would
wanted?
say
Okay.
I would say so. Yeah, it's as far as what I do to as far as how to get there, I'm still fuzzy on those details as far as how to actually make it happen. I'm just really what I'm trying to focus on is what do I need to do today and what do I need to do tomorrow to develop the skills um, and the ability to in 10 years maybe be somewhere where it makes sense, right? Just instead of like focusing too much on in 10 years I got to be here. Well, right now I should probably be working on learning how to write good songs, you know,
Okay. Yeah.
or things like, or right now I should probably practice my major scales, and right now I should probably practice my triads and my, you know,
Yeah.
and practice my vocal abilities, and you know, right now I should do that, and learn how to put together, work on video editing and work on, putting out more content and marketing myself better, and you know, right now I need to do that before I can even, because I'm going to end up in 10 years and not be where,
Well, who knows?
I don't know if
But
that, yeah, I mean, you know, and I'm definitely, as I'm saying this, I'm saying things that I know I need to do. I'm not saying I always do them very well,
sure.
but,
Yeah. I mean,
uh,
those are the tough those things that aren't fun, but you know you need to do.
yeah, and it's all the stuff that, like, yeah, maybe it's inconvenient, like, on my lunch break at work, I don't necessarily, I might want to just go chill in my car and scroll on social media, but I should probably stay in the break room and bring my guitar with me to work and like practice scales in the break room, or like maybe stuff like that. Again, I'm not saying I always do that. I'm just saying that that's um so I'm
Do
not saying I'm perfect in all that by any means, but
I mean, I guess so if a person makes music that's popular enough online or whatever or sells albums and then I I guess I'm just trying to picture what this looks like. Not necessarily for you, just for anybody. You know, there's people who release stuff online, and I think make money because of the streaming and because of the purchasing songs and that kind of stuff. But then it seems like the people then get into, well, now we need to perform, and now I need to travel, and now I need to do gigs, either regionally or all over the country or something like that.
Yeah.
Is that a fair assessment of what somebody who is successful, like, and I'm not saying a multi millionaire. I'm just talking about somebody who, like, their career is music and they make ends meet, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, I mean, everybody's definition of success is different for each person, you know. Some people it is, yeah, they want to be the next Taylor Swift, right? And some people that, and I think if that's your definition, you're probably going to be pretty disappointed because, that's there's not many of that there's not many that get to that level, right? But but yeah, I think for a lot of people it is just, hey, I want to be playing music for a living full time, whatever that looks like, and so um, yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of different paths you can take. You're talking about just like, a song blowing up on TikTok or something,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that kind of thing definitely happens, and there's all kinds of different paths that might happen. You might have a record label come to you and want to work a deal out because you have a certain song that has gotten this many, you know, hundreds of however many thousands and millions of reposts and shares and stuff on a certain platform or something. That might happen. A lot of times that's up to the artist to say, whether that's worth it for them to sign on with a deal or not, or sometimes they meet people through doing it, and then there's just, I don't know if it's, a lot of times you hear people say it's not, it's all about who you know,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think and I've heard this recently, and I think it really rings true. It's all about who knows you,
Okay.
right? Like, it's all about who knows you and who, um, building relationships, and you know, um, in this music space, and just it's gonna take some very unpredictable turns, but as long as the biggest thing is you just got to keep the joy of it. Just keep doing things to make it fun, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so, like, for me, part of why I kind of stopped teaching in the way that I did was, I still teach a little bit, but like at my church and stuff, but it's very limited, and mainly just because of time constraints. If after work I don't have a ton of time, but is because, like, um, if you're trying to think of the best way to describe this, but um, obviously teaching was a lot of fun, but sometimes it's like, you can get drained on the whole process, depending on, like, if you're teaching a kid that, great kid, but they're not interested in it at all, and it can kind of over time kind of suck the joy out of it for you as a teacher too.
Sure.
And so it's like, um, so for me, it's like, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and maybe take a step back from that a little bit, and then when I get home from work, now all I can think about is picking up the guitar and playing. It's because that's, and just really trying to just dive in deeper into it. So
Yeah, I can see that. Especially,
kind of
well, I guess.
protecting the joy of it, I guess. I don't know, but
Yeah. Yeah. No, I can see that that can be draining when you teach people. I mean, and even I was definitely guilty of it. Like,
oh,
I'm. No, no, no.
Steve, you. I'm not talking about you here.
Oh well. I am. I mean, like I'm not talking bad about myself, but like
Yeah, yeah,
I'm 45 years old. I have 4 kids. I want to learn how to play guitar, but my ability to practice and the time that I can take is very minimal. And so, like, you um, end up teaching, and then I have to cancel lesson after lesson because my wife works or whatever, and so all of a sudden it's a month in between lessons, and so then you're reteaching me everything, and but so I can see, that not, if you're able to somehow find somebody who like every week you connect with them, you can watch their progress and
sure.
they're driven and whatever would be, of course, like the ideal situation. But I can see like kids who maybe on a whim, like me in college, I picked up a guitar and I thought this would be
Sure.
fun, and I'm like, wow, this is actually really, really hard, and like it hurts, and I learn a couple chords and then I don't pick it up for 20 years, So like
Sure.
I can see that being kind of draining. You've got people who maybe aren't as driven, and I mean, I'm saying these things because I can see it myself. Like, there's only a finite amount of time, and I can um, teach you something that you don't seem to be all that interested in, and or I could be at home myself and like working on something that I want to work on. Um,
Sure. And like I said, again, I'm not talking about anybody in particular. It's
no,
just,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. So I think you understand what I'm getting at. So
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
totally. No, I mean, I can
yeah,
see it from that
yeah,
angle where you're passionate about something, and um, it's hard to find people who have the same passion, or are at the same level as you, and so I can see that it can be draining. You're like, why are you here? You don't seem to, get the joy out of it or whatever, or you'd never work on your stuff, and I just keep reteaching you the same stuff, and so I can totally see that being
and
a
I think even part of it too is just even. I think part of it is even more than that. Even is just a change of pace, a change of scenery can be, you know, really good to just spark some new inspiration and stuff like that, and kind of um, just new perspective and things like that. So, you know, something even like a new job or something like that is just like it's giving me a new perspective and in a good way, and and now, yeah, I mean, I'm at work and I'm thinking about different things that I want to work on when I get home, and it's you know it's more exciting, you know,
yeah, and I guess you
for
had
that kind of
mentioned,
thing. So
I guess maybe you had mentioned that. I don't know if that was through a text or maybe it was in person. That was the other thing, I guess, the other angle of this that you um like making money, making being at your full-time job, like I need to make money, to pay the bills doing this versus this is my passion, and it so sometimes that can like I have to do this right now because I have to pay the bills as opposed to I really want to do this. Um,
yeah, and obviously I'm saying that at the same time on the other side of my mouth I'm saying that that's still the goal someday, right?
at some point, but yeah, I mean, I think what I'm envisioning when you say that you want to be a full time is it's when you're to the point where you're free, you're free, it's your creative, like it might take you a while to write, a new song or whatever, but money is coming in. I am financially, fairly stable, um,
Yeah,
and
that of my family's taken care of, all that
yeah,
kind of stuff. It's not it's like I don't want to be the I don't want to be the stereotype starving musician that's sleeping in their car. You know what I mean?
yeah,
and obviously there's stories of people that did that and sacrificed that way, and then they made it big, and it's incredible, right? And I'm not speaking bad on that at all. It's just, and maybe that means that I'm not willing to do what it takes. I don't know, but it's just, you I don't want to. Um, I don't think it has to be. I don't think it has to be that way. You know.
Sure. Yeah, and those
So
those are the only stories you hear about are the
yeah,
rags to riches. You don't hear about all the people who sleep in their car and then never make it, and those.
that's just it. It's
From what you know of the industry, do you think that you can fulfill whatever this goal is where you're at now? Like, is Rochester big enough? Or is it the internet is so much more a part of this industry now that you can do it literally from anywhere?
yeah. I mean, I think that obviously the internet is really a big portion of this for sure. It's a big portion of it, but um, at the same time, I mean, um, I've wanted to move out of Rochester for you know since I was 18, basically, and I've been basically working to you know do that, and so I think that's definitely in the future for sure.
Okay. Is it like a music city kind of thing, like a Nashville move, that kind of thing, or
Yeah, I mean, I think we're like we've been talking about even like Dallas, Fort
oh,
Worth area,
okay,
right? Just like I know that there's a massive music scene there. You
okay,
know,
yeah,
um, there's a massive music scene. There's a lot going on there. Nashville is um, there's a lot going on there. I mean, you can definitely make it happen there, but it's also a lot of craziness you got to deal with too.
it's like a guy who's not
It's
in the industry doesn't know much about it. It's just the name that easily comes to mind, right? Like everybody
yeah.
talks about Nashville that doesn't know anything. So,
No, oh for sure, I mean it's awesome. I love going there. I've got
yeah.
the first drummer I ever had in my band. He actually moved to Nashville in 2020, and I mean he's doing well. But I mean you know um it's like playing down on Broadway, right? Just like it's a lot of just um playing for tips, and that's pretty much it's and you can make good money doing that still too. Depending on what bar you're playing, what day of the week, what time of the day, right? Like it's you can still some of those guys really do make quite a bit of money doing that. But um, it's there's also a lot of people that are just really in the music industry as a whole. I mean, you're gonna run into this anywhere. People that are you know willing to backstab you for anything, right?
Oh, sure.
To willing to step on your shoulders to get to the next ladder in any with whatever it takes, right? You're
Yep.
going to run into that. Not saying that that's everybody by any means, because there's a lot of great people in it, but there's also a lot of you know um, lot of sifting through the dirt to find the gold in there, you know.
I see. Wow.
So
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
um,
This is
it's
not
just there's just so much saturation in Nashville, right? There's
sure.
just so much there to where, you know, like I think a lot of, and I don't know, I did too. Like when I first went down there, I'm like, oh my gosh, everybody's so incredible here. This is amazing. And then I went a few years ago, or every time I go there now, I mean, again, there's incredible players down there. Some of the best musicians in the world are there. But there's also just because there's a ton of musicians there doesn't mean they're all good.
Yeah, I see.
There's a lot of like you you go into some of those bars on a Tuesday at 11 a.m. It's like I don't know about I don't know, boys. I'd maybe go hit the shed for a little bit. I'd maybe practice. I'd maybe get back in the woodshed, practice a little bit more. You know,
Well, I mean, I guess they're doing it though. Maybe their practice is more in front of everybody, like you said.
there's it's just there's just so much there. Is really what it is. and again, I've never lived there, so I can't really speak to all this. I'm just speaking based on what I've heard. I still keep up with my friend that moved down there, and I think he would attest to that. He's met some amazing people, and there's a lot of people that will really, you know, really willing to take advantage of you if they think they can get something from you. So,
I see.
but
Okay. Okay. Well, yeah, that was the move.
yeah.
I again, I don't know anything about it, but I thought, man, Rochester, it would be hard to gig around here full time. It doesn't seem like that would be.
I think that's that wherein lies that's wherein lies the conundrum. There is that it's not that I don't want to do music full time. It's that I'm not. I kind of see what the opportunities are here, and
Sure.
it's like I don't know if I really want to do it here, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense.
So,
It makes sense to
but
me, and I don't know that much, but
uh, I
yeah.
think a big part of it too. My wife and I too, we hate the cold. I mean we've lived here our whole lives. It's just so cold all the time. We're just so
So you're ready to make the move? Are you thinking soon?
no, just I mean everybody that I play with knows that it'll happen at some point for sure. So you know
Using music and pushing towards a career. Was there things that surprised you about getting into music more as a business?
yeah, I mean it's a good question. Um, yeah, I mean definitely like the business side of things and like I was fortunate. I had a at least when I was really booking stuff with the full band and stuff. I did have a booking agent that helped out a lot with a lot of that stuff. But it was just like so many just little things involved with and so many people to communicate with. It's I think every musician deals with this when they're trying to take this a little more seriously. It's like we all got into this because we just love playing, but then
Mm-hmm.
it's like I don't want to do all this business stuff. What? But it's like you have to, right? Like you have to think about your taxes and how you're going to, all of that stuff. Like I have an LLC with the state of Minnesota. Like I take in 1099s during tax season from every venue that I play. And then, if I've paid people more than $600 in the previous year, I got to send them a 1099. I got to get a W-9 from them, right? It's just all that kind of stuff. I got to track my mileage. I got to track expenses and all that kind of stuff. Like you know, my taxes are not, they're not, uh, they're not simple. I was not, that was definitely something that was like,
Sure. Do you
that was,
do you do them yourself, or did you do them yourself, or did
oh
you?
God, no.
Okay, that
No, I,
sounds
I
super
bring them to,
complicated. Okay, yeah,
no, I've been taking them to somebody at, um, H&R Block, and just doing that because it's just yeah, it's when all I had was like just a straight up W-2 job of some kind, and I'd have my dad just run it through TurboTax, and he's like, "Here's what you're getting back." I'm like, "Cool," and that was it. But once I started having to deal with 1099s and all that kind of stuff and all the independent contractor stuff, I mean, then it was like I can't help you there anymore,
yeah. How
So
how about things um like negotiating wages and stuff? Like, are all the venues that you play kind of say this is what we pay and take it or leave it, or have
I mean,
you?
some are like that,
Yeah,
and you know I've definitely gotten to a point where I mean I definitely turn some venues down for sure. That just because I just know that they don't. It's not really worth the time to do it. Whether um it's too far away. They really can't go above a certain price. It's like just um I think I run into that a lot. I think I ran into that a lot more with like the full band because it was like okay I can't really. It's like okay that price doesn't really work because you're thinking about it in this way, like the venue is thinking about it in this way, and it's like, okay, but by the time I pay the rest of my band to be here, and then I make sure that they're taken care of, and then I gotta hire a sound production company and to come and bring speakers and lights, and if it's like a street dance or something like that. Like if it's a smaller thing, I can bring my own PA system, but if it's like a street dance, we need to actually move some air, like make it really loud, then I gotta hire somebody to do that, and they're not cheap. And then so it's like, luckily when it at least the past few years, again, I've had that booking agent that's helped out a lot with that, and so I have a contract of like, here's what's happening, and little things like, okay, if it rains, we still get paid, right? Like just things like that, like if it's an outdoor event, like, and you couldn't do it if it wasn't that way, because you can't like lock in a date for an outdoor show, and then all of a sudden the show doesn't happen, and then it's like you're already there, and then it's like you took that night to do this, so it's
Right.
like it's
Yeah,
a lot of this.
and everybody's expecting to be paid, and
Yeah, and you're going to, and I think too, just you gotta um even things like if you're sick, right? Like um on a, I guess normal job, I guess if you're sick, you can generally you can call in, right?
mm-hmm. Yeah,
um but with something like this, it's I better be on my deathbed to call in, right? It's like I have done so many shows where I am sicker than a dog, but I just, if I don't show up, then I mean, I'm more there's more people involved that, you know, if the show doesn't happen because one of us is sick, then they don't get paid either. You know what I mean? And so it's like I have to push through it, because especially if I'm singing, and it's like, I've done a few where I've like completely lost my voice, and those were bad shows, and I hope there's no footage of those online, because they were not good shows, but yeah.
yeah, yeah. That whole angle, I don't, I haven't thought about either. But yeah, for sure, you can't. I mean, everybody, the venue, because they're hoping that
Yeah.
you draw more people, so they make more
Yep.
money. Your
Yep.
whole band is expecting to get paid, and you can't just, yeah. So everybody is relying on each other. That's
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And it's just like, I mean, I've seen it with other people I've played with, like, I've seen it where you're not going to notice this from the stage, but like I've played um I played a show once with the band that the lead singer, she had food poisoning, and so she was switching back and forth singing songs. So I would sing a song, she'd sing a song, and then while I'm singing, she's in the back of the stage puking her
oh
guts
my
out.
god,
She'd
really?
get back up on stage, keep playing or keep singing, right? It's just stuff like that. It's
Yeah,
like, and it really, it's just like, it doesn't matter what's going on in your personal life at the time. You might be irritated as all hell, but about something that's going on. But once you get on that stage, everybody that's in there is expecting a good time, and they don't care about what's going on in your own personal life, and because they got their own stuff to deal with too. They're there to have a good time, and so it's my job to, I'm gonna make sure they have a good time regardless of how I'm feeling right now.
yeah.
you
That's what
know
I've heard. Back many years ago, I thought it would be fun to own a bar. Not that I actually pursued it at all,
sure.
but that was the thing. Like, you when everybody's having a good time, you're the one providing the good time. So,
Yep, that's just it. That's just it. Yeah, and and with that and with that, it comes with a lot of, you know people are going to request that you do songs that, or do songs that, for crying out loud, I boot scoot and boogie again. All right, here we go. Or to them, but they're excited to hear that song because they love that song, and they don't hear it. They don't play it 3 times a weekend like I do. So they're not as sick of it as I am, right? But hey, it doesn't matter, because I gotta. I'm gonna do it anyway, right? And just like, um, and again, just realize again, it's fun to just see people. It's fun to see people smile. It's fun to see people dance. It's fun to see people having a good time to what you're doing, and um and so you're on stage, and and I'm definitely guilty of being up there and like just of having it feel like I'm kind of punching a clock where okay, it's showtime, playing, get done, and I mean I'm definitely guilty of kind of just going through the motions. That's what I'm gonna say.
Oh
Definitely
yeah,
guilty going through the motions with it, but
sure.
you know, it's certainly something that I'm strive to not do because I want to make sure that everybody in that venue feels appreciated that they came. That I'm glad that they're there. That all that stuff. So
Yeah, yeah. No, I can. Yeah, it's like any other job, except nobody thinks of your job like that at all. Like you said, calling in sick, having a bad day. Yeah, whatever. I didn't sleep very good last night, so I'm gonna be a bear today. Like, no, you're gonna sing and you're gonna sound good, and that's
and I well and I know that that by no means is this the only profession where that is required
sure.
of
Yeah, yeah,
somebody, right? Like
yeah.
I'm sure in your line of work that you have to do that. You have to do that into a much more serious degree than what I have to do, right? Like you're in a much there's more on the line there, but um to and that's a definitely an understatement. But so I'm not at all. I'm just saying of what it is. I'm not obviously not comparing it, but that's
No, but I can call in. Unless it's a unique situation, I can call in
sure.
sick. Like I can say, like, not today. I can't do
Yeah,
it today. So, um,
I've had
so
to cancel like one show. I
yeah,
should have canceled like I should have canceled more than that, but again, it was just like
you gotta push through, huh? You gotta,
yeah,
yeah.
that's just it. It's like okay, if I'm not on my deathbed, I'm gonna play, you know, and or I'm gonna push through as best I can, there was one show in particular where now thankfully I wasn't the front man on this show. It was another show that I played that I was just kind of a side man on, and I was so sick that I had to sit in a chair on stage. I sat on a chair on stage with a bucket next to me in case I had to throw up. I was so sick, but it was like the day of, and I'm like, you know, if I don't show up, there's nothing that's gonna happen, and it's just But there wasn't. There was another time where it was like I almost felt like I was gonna fall over on stage, but it was like, well, at that point I was with Carrie, and she actually um, loaded me into the venue pretty much. Like loaded all my gear into there, and she was a rock star. But yeah, she was the rock star for sure. So um, couldn't do this without her by any means.